Should we take a break when we come?
Okay, we're going.
Mr. Chairman, I make a motion that we come out of executive session.
Second.
Thank you. I have a motion on the floor and a second to come out of executive. Hearing no discussion, call for the question, please.
Councilman Revard,
Yes.
Chairman Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray. Yes. Councilwoman Harley,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn.
Yes.
Second Chair Red Eagle.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Chairman, can we break for about 10 minutes? Are we almost done?
I've motion has passed. I'd like to come out of executive. I would have to say that I'd like to get done real quick
Okay.
about my other folks, my Whitman's calling. With that being said, I'd like to go on to the agenda. Avant Production, Councilman Redcorn.
He just stepped out of the room for a second. He had an emergency call.
I'll take it, Chairman.
Yes, and I want to talk to the council about that. Councilman Redcorn has got a situation, and I want to let him know he has our full support, and he needs to do whatever he needs to do is fine with me. Thank you. Second Chair Red Eagle.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Chairman. I'd like to address the whole council today on a very important issue, very important decision that we have to make, and a little history about our people. We've all had relatives and ancestors on the council, as well as very important people. We've been a part of this 1906 Allotment Act since its very beginning. Our people came here in 1871, as you know, and we purchased the land from the Cherokees, which they were very, very adamant to give up. I've heard stories about that, and we've all heard stories about it. Some said that they didn't like the cuckleburs and the stickers out here, and they couldn't farm the land, and that's true. And it's some of our mineral estate is farmable. You know, my dad was a farmer himself, and he raised alfalfa and wheat and corn and things like that when we grew up. And so some of it is farmland, but not very much, to tell you the truth. But back to what I wanted to present to the council. And the Production and Development Committee is here a while back, and by the way, Councilman Redcorn did introduce a resolution where we could go into production if we wanted to, you know, go into oil production as a mineral council ourselves. The Avant pool is a very, very lucrative old pool. It's part of a water flood. It was drilled as far back as the early 1900s, and being a part of this council, just a little history about my family. On both sides, my mother was a Logan from Hominy, and
Zonzoli.
yeah, Zonzoli district, and my dad was part of the Beaver Band over around Barnesville. It was originally called Big Heart, and they got together after World War II, and both were full bloods, you know. And there's a few others of us around, but not many, you know, anymore. And Councilman Redcorn wanted me to point that out, and even as far back as the 1920s, when all the murders were occurring and everything was going awry in our tribe, Nikawashi Thunko was the chief at the time. He was a half brother to my great grandfather. His name was Governor Joseph Fine, and
Oh, wait.
they were half brothers, and that's where I'm related to the Williams and the Raysons and Tuckers. We're all related over there on my grandmother's side. Anyway, I'm really privileged and honored to be on this council. My dad was on here, and my uncles were on here. And my brothers were involved with the new nation.
Oh, wait.
And former brother, former chief John Reddico was even chief at one time, and my dad was even chief for about a whole month in the early 1970s when Chief Paul Pitts passed away, and he was for just a little while there. So our family goes back a long ways. Even during World War II, Uncle Harry Red Eagle Sr. was on the council during World War II. So we've all had people on this very diligent council. You know, we do the old tribal council, and then it's evolved into the minerals council now. So at this time, you know, from the resolution that Councilman Redcorn, we voted on it and passed it, and even for our past former chairman Andrew Yates even voted on it. It kind of surprised me what he did, but he did. He voted for it to acquire leases, I believe is what it was called at the time. So at this time, being a part of this mineral council and the part of the production and development committee, and I'll read it to you. I'd like to make a motion. The production and development committee, PDNC, is recommending that the Osage Minerals Council, OMC, secure acreage in order to operate and produce orphan wells in the Avant Pool, AP, located in parts of Township 22, 23, 24, and 25, north, branches 10, 11, 12, east. The Production Development Committee is asking the council to set aside and not lease the abandoned leases not held by production at this time. The plan is to create an Osage shareholder business entity that generates revenue to pay expenses, royalties to Osage shareholders, and also pay for orphan well plugging and cleanup. That's my motion.
I have a motion on the floor. I'd like a second, please.
Second.
Second, I have a motion on the floor by Secretary Red Eagle, seconded by Councilman Redcorn. Discussion, I would like to open up with, I'm going to be supportive of this. I appreciate you bringing brother's name up. We have to look at what we do right. The next question is that your committee is looking at another environment. I'd like to remember what the DMD talked to us about, and I've read Mr. Dowd's letter, and you're committed to this element right now. You say that it's on an Avant lease. I would like to say that I will be also in support of expanding that leasing opportunity out of your committee. And the floor is open, please. Councilman Rivard, Councilwoman Foreman, Councilman Redcorn, in that order.
Thank you, Chairman, and thank you, Councilman Red Eagle and Redcorn, for bringing this to our attention. As a member of the Production and Development Committee, I'm familiar with what we refer to as the Avant field. I don't know anything about it in particular because we haven't discussed it yet. I just know that we are in talks, still ongoing talks, with outside parties who are interested in developing that field, and I'm not going to disclose who. I really would have liked to have seen this subject matter in an executive. But that being said, since it's brought up, we're talking about a particular field on our reservation, our mineral estate. I just want to remind everybody that we're in talks with other entities about this one property. I think that it's premature to vote on acquiring acreage when we've not got to see this proposal yet. I saw it for the first time this morning. I haven't got to read it yet, but I think it was Mr. Lynn sent it out, and I saw it in the inbox. So I don't know what the proposal is at all. I am very much in favor of producing our own wells. I am familiar with Mr. Dow's legal opinion, which we assigned him to do. His responses were kind of vague because there were several different avenues that he was telling us, in his opinion, that we could take. And he wanted further guidance from us as to which ones we would like for him to pursue more information for, so he could give us some more definite opinion. Because what he's given us so far, to my knowledge, is, in not being an attorney, of course, is kind of an overview and just his very preliminary opinion. of what we might could do to produce our own property. But don't get me wrong, I am all in favor of producing our own wells. It's just a shame that we don't have more Osage people involved in this industry when we have so much opportunity over the last century in this particular industry. It's just really, it baffles me. I'm really not sure why that happened, but nevertheless, I've got to see the proposal. I think before we vote on a proposal, we ought to read it. Not, I know that the United States Congress and the government doesn't do that, but I think this body ought to read stuff before we vote on it. So I would like to know more about the proposal, and I'd also like to weigh it against other offers that we, have pending. So I just think it's premature, but I'm excited and interested in looking into it further. So that's all I've got to say. Thanks.
Councilwoman Foreman.
Thank you, Chair. I have to agree with Councilmember Rivard. It's way too premature. First of all, it's been represented to this council and to the public that this is a recommendation of the Production and Development Committee. It is not. Like Councilman Rivard said, this plan was provided to the entire council last night late. I haven't had a chance to read it. We need to read it before we vote on it. I too, like all the council members, am very supportive of, of us producing our own minerals. I'm very supportive of the nation creating an oil and gas company to start drilling their own wells. But we can't vote on this because we're not familiar with it. It is not a recommendation of the Production and Development Committee, and I can't vote yes for it. As a matter of fact, I, think we should table it until we've had a chance to review it and make a full recommendation. And therefore, I won't be supporting it today. Thank you.
Councilman.
Chairman.
Yes.
I had my hand up after.
Yes,
Is it
sir.
okay if I talk?
Yes, sir.
Okay, I've asked David Byrd to go ahead and sit in my seat. I want to introduce David Byrd. He's a Wahakali Osage. He's just signed a location in our Indian village. We're happy to have him there. I don't know how many years you've spent in the oil field, Mr. Byrd, but we're proud to have you here. You've been on Paul's plugging committee and done great work. And what I'm hearing, we have a lot of Osages on our team. Yeah. They're either Osage or they're married to an Osage. So I couldn't be more proud of our plugging team and their willingness to tackle the A-band. We did discuss this in production and development. At that time, I thought we had approval. Now I'm hearing we don't. I find it kind of odd that I can't get a resolution through my own committee, but might pass in the full mineral council. So I've got concerns that, if we can't pass something through a committee, but it'll pass through the whole mineral council, how do we handle that? So I feel like, that's just kind of academic. What I feel like is we've got an opportunity. This A-band field, and Mr. Byrd has kind of convinced me that we need help and we need to take charge of our own process. Everybody's come and gone. It's been over 100 years. And now we're looking at some pretty low marginal production. However, these guys think, and they just told me another story this morning. They went out and did some level shots and they found another location in the same field. So they're highly active in this area. We want to couple their effort with the University of Kansas, and we introduced them last time. They're AOR, Enhanced Oil Recovery Field Experts, so they can work and train our guys to attack and get additional barrels. So I think the time has come that we need to move forward with the with getting our own production. The plan is, it's really not a plan. It's a summary of what we've done. So if you read that, there's still elements for business development. And I'm looking at our business development chair. You're gonna have to possibly help take it a little further. We got our attorney online, so it's not finished. That plan is not period and end point. It's a process we're just gonna get started. So it's really not a plan, but more of a summary of where we are now. So just a clarity, and Bill wrote it up, it's just a discussion of what we've been talking about for 2 or 3 months now in the Production and Development Committee. So, I don't know, Paul, I'll ask if you seem like you were interested when we had our P&D meeting, that your crew tackled this AVAN. Is that still the case?
I don't know anything about the AVAN field, Councilman Redcorn. I do know that about where it is. I do know it's an opportunity for us. I am extremely interested in pursuing it and even pursuing it for ourselves, our own development, but I don't know anything about it. I don't know the name of one single well. I don't even know what it produces from. I think maybe Bartlesville, but I'm not sure. So I just think it's premature. But yes, I am very interested in discussing this further. But all we've ever did is mention the AVAN field in general. And yeah, I'd like to look into it. But to my knowledge, unless I missed a meeting or two, we've not discussed a single, I don't know, is there any tank batteries out there? How many wells? I have no.
Chairman, if I may, I'm gonna turn it over.
Through these meetings, I must have fallen asleep because I don't remember any specifics, but I am interested in pursuing it. Thank you.
Councilman Redcorn.
I'm gonna turn it over to Mr. David Byrd. I think he had his hand up.
Yes, sir, I did, Tolly. Chairman
Mr. Byrd.
Yes, Chairman Waller, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Okay. I'd like to address you as well as every member of the council. And we would welcome you as a field inspector in our pilot project that we're working on. We encourage each and every one of you to take an opportunity to come out and take a look at this field, see what we're seeing, and put your feet on the ground with us and let us tell you what we're finding, what we're seeing, and tell you a few ideas of what we've got intentions are in mind. It's got great production history. We've got a lot of wells sitting there that's standing plumb full of crude oil to the top. Nobody's really had an opportunity to develop that field in quite so many years, anywhere from 40, 50, 70 years back, and even longer, 100 years out that far back as well. And it's a great field, it has an awful lot of potential. And yes, if we don't get the opportunity to get our feet wet and wade off in some of these projects, we're gonna be sitting there plugging wells for generations to come. And it's a never-ending process. As we go along, there's probably over 2,000 wells on the hit list. 5 years from now, there could be increases like you wouldn't believe, because there's wells out there that I see that I go by that's not even on our watch list yet, and they should be. And yeah, we can just continue plugging wells, but we've got a little fountain of youth sitting out in that AVAN field, and the opportunity is there with the administration and the things for the next 8 years, 16 years down the road, prices of crude oil coming up. We've got every opportunity to get our feet wet, start a few projects, and we don't have to start off huge right off the bat, but give us an opportunity to start picking on a few of these wells, get some infrastructure put in place, and then just start, we're not gonna make a ton of money overnight. It's a long process, and that's where we kind of need to take a direction of this, and everybody get an opportunity to come out, even if it's individually or one at a time or as a group, and then we can go over a few things And as myself, I'm a fourth generation oil and gas guy, and I've learned old school production ways, and I'm learning a lot of this new enhanced recovery and a lot of territorial reproduction stuff and things like that. And I've seen a lot of it, I've been around it, worked in it and stuff, and we've got 3 or 4 different routes to go. And if I think if we just, if we can find the resources, we've got the manpower, we've got the knowledge, we've got the experience. All we need to do is just get on board, give us an opportunity to start bringing something back to our shareholders. Because, you know, we're not going nowhere. We're doing an environmental thing by cleaning up all of our orphan well projects, but yeah, we need to get that done as well. But we also need to look at developing some of the stuff. And the 8-man field is a huge field, but it's not the only field out there that we've got our eyes on and setting on. There's some bigger fields out there to play, but this one's right here in our backyard. It's got great pieces of ground to work with. We've got good relationships with the landowners that we're dealing with, and they've got their arms opened up and welcome to see us coming on there. With that being said, anything you all would like to ask me, feel free to do so.
Call for the question.
Councilwoman Foreman.
Thank you, Chairman. Back to the suggestion that we need to read something before we vote on it. In this plan, and I've only scanned it because it came in late last night and didn't have time this morning to review it. I believe it removes significant amounts of acreage from leasing, which I understand why they want to do that. But until we can figure out, because the council has no money to start business or pay for pumpers or operations of any kind of production, we need to work out all those kinds of details. And before we vote to remove significant amounts of acreage from leasing, while we figure out how we're going to do this, we're missing opportunities to lease some of this acreage that may not be of interest under this plan. I mean, we're talking multiple sections in multiple townships. So, you know, I can't tell you how excited I am about us doing something like this, but we can't vote on this today. And I would strongly urge Councilman Redcorn to table this until we have a chance to read this 11 pages plan, and then come back and vote on it. But we need to understand what it says first. And I'm very concerned about agreeing to remove acreage from future leasing when we know people are interested in coming back to the Osage now to lease, and we're just foregoing the opportunity to make money while we figure out how we're going to make this work for the Minerals Council. So that was just the point. You know, that's just one point that I know of that I think is problematic in this 11-page plan. So I really do encourage all of us to read it, table it, let us read it, and come back to the table.
Councilwoman Gray.
Yeah, thank you. I want to thank Councilman Redcorn for bringing this and also having it been reviewed by our professionals that we have here, and especially with long-term service and council with tribal member and also one of our works for us. We thank you, Mr. Bird, that you guys have brought something that we can start. You know, it's step one. And I always ask myself when I look at a business plan or even hearing the idea, because then we can put it in, we can take it from the idea and put it into a business plan and then a plan of action. But I'll say this to all my colleagues here, if not now, when? And that's probably been the most frustrating thing. This is viable. And then after, you know, we start putting some numbers to it, but I will be voting yes to get something started. And this going around, and because it may not fit in everyone's, you know, what they're thinking. I'm a businesswoman, and I deal with these type of situations every day of what, you know, let's look at the viability of it and what the return on the investment and what it will cost for this. But I'm prepared to say yes today to get it started. So that's all I wanted to say, Chairman and my colleagues. I encourage us to let's vote yes. Let's get something going.
Call for the question.
Chairman,
Councilman Redcorn.
I got one quick comment, then I'm gonna call for the question. When we did the orphan well grant, to me, this is Mr. Red Eagle and I put that together 3-4 years ago, and you know, we're still seeing it roll. We got Osages now employed on our plugging. This is gonna kind of expand into the orphan well. During that orphan well grant, we had Tim Dowd look at what's the business gonna look like if we operate these leases. One of the things he said was the possibility of putting this under a Terra is there. So I'd like for Mr. Pipestem, and I still see him on, if he could review that. I sent that to you, Chair, since we're in this Terra discussions. However, now we're hearing things we might not like it, but I still would like our attorney to review that letter from Tim Dowd and work with our business folks and see if we can keep that going into bid IMDA or a Terra agreement that we're operating orphan wells. And all those recommendations are in there.
Yeah.
Okay,
Can
and
I
with that,
respond to you?
yeah, I'll let you go for the question.
Okay, just in response, you know, one of the things that, in working with Mr. Pipestem, and when we're looking at business development, it is always on a case by case, because the 1906 is completely different, but I like your comments, and Chairman, I'd like to call for the question.
Thank you. I would like to make one comment. I do understand the dilemma that we're in. I asked in the meeting that we look at this process. We asked that DMD comes in and has some options that they had already talked to the whole council over. I think these are going to be available to us. With that, I'd like to call for the question.
Chairman Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman,
No.
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Councilwoman Harlan,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes,
Second Chair Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar.
No,
Motion passes.
Thank you, council. I'd like to go into committee reports. I'd like to ask that I see a comment. They're asking that we ask our attorneys to remove themselves from this meeting. I feel like it just shows that right then. I do want you to send the information along to Mr. Pipestem as requested. Thank you. Committee reports, I'd like to start off with, we do have one item, I brought it up shortly, but for the shareholder is that the NIAGM program is going to be brought to our data platform here at the Osage. We're going to have the nation's IT put it in. It's going to answer a lot of questions that we've had and not available answers. With that being said, I'd like to turn my committee reports over. We got to talk about some great things we've done. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Councilman Rivard as committee chair to start our committee reports, please.
thank you, Chairman. I'm not prepared to present anything to the council from my committee. Really, I will say this in general, that our plugging program has been really successful and we're moving forward with it. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Floor is open, council. Councilwoman Foreman.
Thank you, Mr. Burke.
Sorry, I forgot to take my hand down.
Councilman Redcorn.
Mr. Byrd is leaving. He said, thank you for your time. They're excited to get started, and thanks for the vote.
Thank you. Good work.
Chairman?
Council?
Yes, we have sent over a request to Mr. Ryan Armstrong to provide us with our snapshot and our updated record. And if you notice in your executive session, you received some of those, the last one we had was up until probably 2 weeks ago.
That'd be fine. Have Lacey send it out as we speak.
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I think everybody's moved on to their committee reports and finished, so I'd like to make a motion to approve the meeting minutes from last meeting.
Second.
I'll second that. We have a motion on the floor by Councilwoman Harden, seconded by Councilman Redcord. With that, I'd like to call for the question.
Councilwoman Foreman,
No.
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Yes.
Councilwoman Harlan,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Second Chair Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar.
No,
Motion to adjourn.
Right, Chairman Waller,
But Chairman, before we,
Yes, let me vote.
Chairman, before
Before
we
y'all
adjourn,
say
I'd
anything.
like to make a
Chairman
statement.
Waller.
Chairman, I'd like to make a statement before we
You
adjourn.
guys have voted on that yet.
He needs to.
Chairman Waller,
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
motion passes.
Yes, I have a issue that's going to come up on our next meeting. Some of the councils brought to my attention that we might need to set our Wednesday meeting to Thursday, the 20th. I would like to entertain a motion to do so.
So moved.
So moved. I need a second.
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 Redcorn, second.
I have a motion on the floor by second Chair Red Eagle, seconded by Councilman Redcorn. Any discussion?
Yes. Why do we need to move it to Thursday?
We're not going to be able to make a quorum. There's some other obligations by our council that I don't think we can hit the quorum that morning, but we can Thursday.
Mr. Chairman, I won't be available that Thursday, but I would be supportive to the council moving so that there could be a quorum.
Yes, ma'am. Call for the question.
Councilwoman Gray,
Yes.
Councilwoman Harlan,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Second Chair Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rebar,
abstain.
Chairman Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman.
I won't be available on the 20th, so I vote no.
Motion passes.
Chairman,
Thank
this
you.
second chair, like before we adjourn, I'd like to ask the council for their diligence and their prayers. My brother just had a heart attack here yesterday, Eddie Jr., and he's all right now, but he's had a stent put in his heart. And ask for your prayers and your thoughts. Thank you.
Yes.
I'd like to have some reverence in my meeting at this time. I'm going to pray for brother. Since I've been a little boy, I have family show up to me in this type of effort. I'm getting ready to go to my doctor and then right on to a funeral. Wakanda, Ali Wakanda, Azinki, and Datsi, Iwikinaji. My Lord Jesus Christ, we depend on you. Awati Zani Nishkanjia, Ali, Chunka one on. Take care of my sacred elder. Brother gave his history of his people like he had to. He should never have to do that. I've sat with every one of them. And I want you to come down and take care of my brother. All my life, I've looked at these meetings with them, dances with them, services with them. Once when I was young, I was at Aunt Maggie Iron's house when we lost our elder. And this man kept me in the room with my sisters, full bloods. And I want you to look down upon him. His family, Maddie, all of them. They are more than family. They are my blood. They are all of our blood. They represent what's best in us. I ask you, Lord, to leave them, help them. And all of our people that are endangered, lost, and loved ones. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen. I'd like to entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion on the floor and a second. Call for the question, please.
Councilwoman Harlan, Rivard,
Yes.
Councilman Redcorn,
Yes.
Second Chair Red Eagle,
Yes.
Councilman Rivard,
Yes.
Chairman Waller,
Yes.
Councilwoman Foreman,
Yes.
Councilwoman Gray.
Yes.
Motion passes.